Hello everyone and welcome to this session. My name is Fatima Ghalib Mohammed and my study is on the effects of teaching through authentic material on EFL learners. The aim of this study is to identify the ways in which teaching through authentic material to pre-intermediate learners can be made more effective. Whether authenticity based learning is rationally viable in today's time and age, and the methodologies that can be relied on to improve the learning experience for the learners. Covered in this study are questions on when should authentic material be introduced to students, at what level, its advantages and relative disadvantages, selecting appropriate authentic material, the effectiveness that it can have specifically for pre-intermediate learners, and finally what authentic material entails and how teachers can rely on a number of sources and tools that can enhance the learning experience of students. So let's begin by answering some of these questions based on some of the available literature. Researchers such as Kilikaya 2004 and Kim 2005 state that authentic materials can be used for intermediate and advanced level students only. These researchers are of the view that the use of authentic materials at lower levels causes a sense of demotivation and frustration in students, since at these levels they largely lack knowledge and understanding of many lexical items and structures used in the target language. Gurianto and Morley 2001 also state that at lower levels, even with quite simple tasks, the use of authentic texts may not only prevent the learners from responding in meaningful ways, but can also lead them to feel frustrated, confused, and more importantly, demotivated. However, others argue that exposure to authentic materials should ideally begin in the earliest stages of language learning. McNeill 1994 and Miller 2005 stress that an early familiarization to such material will aid students in developing more complex strategies for future language learning tasks. Also, Allen and others studied 1,500 high school students across 3 different levels of language learning using authentic materials. From the results, the researchers gathered that all the students were able to comprehend some meaning from all of the texts, even at the beginner's level. As per these studies, less proficient students can derive value from authentic materials. So, how do we go about selecting effective authentic material? According to Lee 1995, the text must be compatible with the objectives of the course. It should improve the language skills in the way that teachers want learners to practice. Teachers must take into consideration the length of the text and adjust their teaching approach accordingly. A myriad of text types or sources must be selected, such as articles, advertisements, weather forecasts, interviews, poems, application forms, and so on. Barado 2006 suggests a three-pronged criteria for making a choice on what authentic text to use. Number one, content suitability. Number two, exploitability. And number three, readability. Suitability of content refers to whether the text can create interest in the students while still being appropriate according to their needs and capabilities. The text should be culturally relevant also to the experiences of the students. A careful and wise selection of materials focused on learners is a must if we want a positive response from them. Exploitability relates to how the text can be used to enhance the student's proficiency in the language and how the text can be exploited literally for teaching purposes. Finally, readability refers to the language of the text, including the structural and verbal complexity, as well as the degree of new vocabulary and grammatical forms used in the text. So, this study, in addition to the secondary research, a primary source was relied upon in the form of a self-created survey. The purpose of this survey was to identify the preference between authentic and graded material, as well as broadly identify areas in which language students feel they need help with the most, and also to pinpoint tools and methodologies that they feel will best benefit them. The target with the survey in terms of sample size was to get a minimum of 100 responses through various platforms such as email, social networks, and even face-to-face questioning. This target was achieved, and thus the results were a more representative sample, especially considering respondents belonged to different regions of the Arabian Gulf. This is the survey that was used. So the questions were about the tools that students found most useful. It was also about the components of the English language that students felt they needed most help with. So also questions about whether students felt more comfortable with a native English teacher or a non-native English teacher who has a good command over the language. Also questions about the material that students felt were effective in improving their reading skills as well as their listening skills. So, the following results were collected from surveys given to students from the British Council across the Arabian Gulf, including Kuwait, Qatar, Bahrain, and Iraq. In total, 100 surveys were given. So the results showed that students found task-based activities the most useful, as well as the use of videos in lessons. So 42% of students felt that task-based lessons were most effective, and 35% voted for the use of videos. As for the component of English language that students felt they needed most help with, grammar was at number one with 36% and vocabulary at 22%. The preferred tool for listening, TV shows and movies were most popular, at 35%, and the radio was least popular at 18%. The preferred tools for reading, newspapers and magazines were most popular, and novels and textbooks were the least popular. So, what does this tell us? Well, the results indicate that students want invigorating and mentally stimulating material to help them grasp the English language better. Such material most popular was represented in the form of authentic material such as movies or video lectures. Grammar proved to be the most complicated component of English for non-native speakers and learners, and most students felt that a native teacher's perspective on the language is more significant than a non-native teacher's, regardless of the level of proficiency they may have over the language. This might be owing to their cultural inclination towards the language as well as their accent. To conclude, when used effectually, authentic materials help to fuse the real world with the classroom and considerably enliven the ESL or EFL class and the whole learning experience. Exposing the students to cultural features and references, especially, is bound to spawn a deeper understanding and a sustained interest in the topic or subject. On one hand, the students evolve their ability to zone in on relevant information, and on the other, they learn how to let go of irrelevant details. As students practice their individual strengths, they eventually develop confidence in being able to function and blend in an English-speaking society. In the world we live in now, sources of material for use in teaching are countless and must be chosen carefully. Opportunities present themselves in various tools such as the web, the media, television, radio, newspapers, and magazines. All these sources combined can generate excellent results while adjusting language learners in a normal language speaking environment. Thank you very much for attending this session. I hope that you have found it useful. If you do have any questions, please feel free to email me on this email address. Thank you very much.